Hi, my name is Natalie, and this is Natalie Lawyer Chick. I'll be discussing popular topics through a legal lens. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Hey YouTube, my name is Natalie. Welcome to my channel. I'm a criminal defense attorney. Thank you very much for stopping by. So today is going to be my analysis of Capitol rioter turned sovereign citizen, Pauline Bauer. Miss Bauer was arrested following the January 6, 2021 attack on the United States Capitol after Donald Trump was defeated by Joe Biden in the 2020 election. Now, Miss Bauer is alleged to have committed this offense of storming the Capitol, entering the Capitol building, and threatening to kill Nancy Pelosi. These charges have not been proven in a court of law as of yet. They are still alleged. She is presumed to be innocent. So I just want to make sure that we set that framework. There is some video footage allegedly of Miss Bauer entering the Capitol building and saying, "Bring out Nancy Pelosi," and describing the way in which she wanted to kill Nancy Pelosi. So right now she is alleged to have committed these offenses. So just as some background on Pauline Bauer, she's originally from Pennsylvania, and she actually owns a pizzeria in Pennsylvania. And apparently, according to her sister, during the restrictions and lockdown that happened because of the panorama, she became exceedingly radicalized to basically, Donald Trump's point of view as far as the election was concerned. And she believed that the election had been stolen. So she came to Washington, D.C. in order to protest the election results. When Pauline came here to the DC area, she went to the Capitol building and she made several posts allegedly on Facebook saying that she was going to be entering into the Capitol. And then after she entered the Capitol, she also made additional posts saying that she had entered the Capitol, allegedly. Miss Bauer was not initially arrested after the riot at the Capitol. However, on January 7th of 2021, the day after the riot, the FBI received a tip from an anonymous individual that Miss Bauer and a man by the name of William Blauser, very similar names, but I don't think they're related. One's Pauline Bauer and the other one is William Blauser, had taken photographs of themselves inside of the Capitol on January 6th. Now, that person did not provide any identifying information about themselves, but the FBI was able to trace that person to Kane, Pennsylvania, based on their IP address. And so they determined that both Bauer and Blauser reside in Kane, Pennsylvania, or in the surrounding area of Kane, Pennsylvania. And that same day, another witness submitted an electronic tip to the FBI National Threat Operations Center regarding Bauer's presence inside the Capitol on January 6th. They stated that the person observed a post on Facebook by Bauer on another individual's Facebook account. They included Bauer's personal Facebook page with public posts. Also had a third witness who sent an electronic tip to the FBI National Threat Operations Center. On February 8th, law enforcement interviewed this witness regarding the electronic tip, and they indicated that Bauer owns or works at a restaurant called Bob's Trading Post, which is near Red Bridge Campground. In that electronic tip, the third witness, said that on January 6th, they were reading the page of a Facebook friend, and that Miss Bauer and Mr. Blauer were commenting about the activities at the Capitol building and the destruction being done. They also observed an individual with the name Pauline Bauer write a comment saying that she was at the Capitol and she was inside, and they provided the following screenshots. So in the screenshots, it says, Pauline is saying, allegedly, that I am at the Capitol and was inside. None of us are armed, just pissed that this is what we have to do to take our country back from communism. So then the FBI viewed the Facebook account of Miss Bauer and observed the following post. And do you really think that anyone could break into the Capitol? The antagonists were let in. We all got maced trying to stop what was happening. They used us for a movie so you could watch it on the news. So this is Ms. Bauer basically incriminating herself, allegedly, into entering the Capitol building. They had multiple witnesses to each of these allegations with multiple photographs. I'll put some of the screenshots of them here. And again, there was Capitol building video surveillance footage, and the FBI agent reviewed that video surveillance footage from the building itself, and Miss Pauline Bauer can be seen inside of the building according to this video footage, as well as body-worn camera. And it's on the body-worn camera at approximately 2:57 p.m. The body camera videos recorded another individual saying words to the effect of, "This is where we find Nancy Pelosi." And then Bauer is then recorded saying words to the effect of, "Bring that effing B out here now. Bring her out here. We're coming in if you don't bring her out." Soon after, MPD officers, that's the Metropolitan Police Department, attempted to deny individuals access to the hallway entrance. That resulted in a brief confrontation, and Bauer is recorded on body camera stating words to the effect of, "You back up, don't even try." She was subsequently charged with multiple counts of violent entry, disruptive conduct, and obstruction of Congress. And this all stems from her allegedly breaking into the Capitol building on January 6th. Before this event of her making these multiple filings in court and appearing virtually in court to represent herself hit national news, she was also found to be in contempt of court and served 1 day in jail after these charges because basically she refused to appear in court. So she spent 1 day in jail and promised to come to all future court dates, and was released from that contempt finding. That's how she was able to purge the contempt. After she was found to be in contempt, her next court hearing was scheduled for June 11th of 2021. Ms. Bauer appeared virtually and informed the court that she did not understand or stand under the law, that instead she was here by a special divine appearance, a living soul, and that under Genesis 1, God gave man dominion under the law. This was our first signal that Ms. Bauer was going to be advancing sovereign citizen arguments in her defense of herself. She also refused any counsel to represent her. She did have a court-appointed lawyer that was appointed to her, but he was only tapped as standby counsel, which means he's to stand on the side, she is to represent herself, and then if she needs to consult with him or ask him to take over, he can fulfill that role. On June 4th, 2021, she filed a patent of nativity with the court. This has absolutely no legal force in the law, but basically what it was saying was it was proof that her living DNA existed on the land before there was the United States of America or any state. The filings in that document are alleged to have shown how her ancestors existed on this land, the United States, before the establishment of the United States in 1776. Just as a side note, that's completely irrelevant to whether or not you have to submit to the jurisdiction of the country in which you live. It makes no difference when your ancestors got here. Everyone has to submit to United States law. But, that's a part of the sovereign citizen nonsense, that they have to, at all points in time, try to bring in these arguments that have no bearing on whether or not the court actually has jurisdiction. She also filed a color of law agency so named District of Columbia, doing business as U.S. District Court, District of Columbia Circuit. And she says, where whoever being a clerk willfully refuses or neglects to make or forward any report, certificate, statement, or document as required by law shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 1 year or both. When Ms. Bauer appeared in court again on July 19th of 2021, she had quite the interesting presentation. So we don't have any video of this, but Scott McFarlane News on Twitter was able to live tweet. I think that he was able to be there virtually to hear what happened, probably as a member of the media. And basically, he says that Miss Bauer told the judge that she's a sovereign citizen and not subject to the court's law. She repeatedly interrupted the judge. According to Mr. McFarland, Ms. Bauer was getting really ugly with the judge, and the proceedings were getting very difficult to handle. Ms. Bauer reasserted her motion to dismiss, in which she said that she was a living soul, a creation of God, a woman, as one of we the people. Hereby motion the court to drop all charges against my vessel. So her vessel as in not her soul, but her physical body, Pauline Bauer, and dismiss the case. Inconsistencies with Due Process Protections Act and obligations not met under the Brady rule. So Brady has nothing to do with due process issues as far as your living soul or anything like that. Brady has to do with the state's obligation to provide evidence that tends to mitigate guilt or prove that someone could be innocent. That's what Brady is all about. It has nothing to do with what she's talking about. So she quoted that out of context completely. According to Mr. McFarland, Ms. Bauer also said, I think the American people will be shocked to find out who owns the Capitol building right now. So what is my analysis as far as a person that's accused of entering illegally into the Capitol building and storming the Capitol? What is my, and also advancing sovereign citizen arguments in defending themselves? Well, as I've stated time and time again, the person who represents themselves has a fool for a client, and that's coming from someone who has represented themselves in court. It is ill-advised. So even if you were going to do all the research on what the actual law is, follow the law to its letter, it is very ill-advised for you to represent yourself in court. Add on top of that the imposition of sovereign citizen doctrine, and you have a recipe for total disaster. I do have some, firsthand knowledge of how the Capitol rioters are being treated in Washington, D.C. District Court, so the local court in Washington, D.C., the Superior Court in Washington, D.C., not the federal court, but the one, not the Superior Court, but the one for the District of Columbia. And I will tell you this, for the most part, a lot of these people have no criminal records, and the ones that have been able to plead out their cases, there was one gentleman in particular who the government was requesting a sentence of 18 months, and he actually only received 8 months. A lot of that probably had something to do with his criminal record. Washington, D.C. is a pretty lenient jurisdiction when it comes to sentencing, especially if the person only made threats and caused property damage, but didn't actually physically touch anyone. It's very unlikely that any of these people will see any significant amount of jail time unless they brought weapons with them or have severe criminal records or someone was injured as a result of something that they directly did. Whether or not I agree with that is a totally different thing. I'm just talking about the analysis on it. So if you just go to court with an attorney, it is very likely that many of these people will get several months in jail versus years in prison, right? And so the thing to keep in mind is that she's already faring worse than people that are similarly situated to her, the man that took the plea and got 8 months versus 18 months, for example. And she is damaging any prospects that she has to mount a defense in the case. I don't know what defense she could potentially have if, in fact, she was physically inside the Capitol building and she did, in fact, threaten Nancy Pelosi and then went on to make a bunch of Facebook postings about actually being inside of the Capitol building. If the government can prove that that's what happened, then obviously she would be found guilty of the offenses, but an attorney can really help to mitigate the potential damage to her as far as the sentencing to be received. Now, I will tell you guys that I did observe some Capitol rioters in court, in virtual court in Washington, D.C. I went on to the Zoom link, or it's WebEx or something like that. I went on to the virtual hearing link, and because I wanted to see him, I just happened to catch that some of these people were having their first court date for either trespassing into the Capitol or being on the Capitol grounds after the DC mayor had imposed a curfew. And I observed that for everyone that was there, they were all represented by counsel, and 99% of the people behaved themselves in a dignified manner that fit the court proceedings, that fit what they were there for. Everyone basically either had their case continued, or for some people that hadn't actually entered the Capitol building but were only in the area after the curfew had passed, they had agreed to some type of diversionary program or deferred sentencing program where, they would do community service or something like that, and then it would come off of their records. There are people that were present around the Capitol that did not go in, that were like, journalists or just spectators that were curious, that wanted to go and see what happened, and they got swept up once the DC police came and started arresting everyone. So a lot of those people were charged with breaking the curfew, and the penalty for that is relatively minor, and so they resolved their cases. There were a few people there that were actually charged with entering into the Capitol building. Their cases were continued so that they could be set in for a trial. There was one gentleman that was there that was appearing virtually, like everyone was. And he, like I said, 99% of the people were just fine. Before court got started, like everyone was logging on to the virtual hearing. Before court got started, he was saying things about Donald Trump, like, go Donald Trump, like the judge hadn't come on the bench yet. But no one else was really, it was very strange because no one else was speaking at the time. Everybody was just being quiet. And if anything, maybe lawyers were talking to their clients and being like, hey, could you give me a call? This is my number. Or maybe talking to the clerk or something like that. But everything was pretty sedated and quiet. And then out of nowhere comes this guy that's like, go Donald Trump. And he puts on his red MAGA hat. And he says, oh, I wonder what they're going to say, about this. And then the court gets started. The judge starts everything up. And everyone's waiting for their turn for it to be called, and he doesn't interrupt again, and he takes off his hat eventually, and no one responded to him when he said the whole like go Donald Trump thing. So I don't know if maybe like the wind was taking out of his sails because he put on his red hat and like nobody cared. Like everybody was focused on their own clients, or the clients were focused on their own cases, and then there was media there on the virtual call, but I'm sure that they were just focused on trying to find out what was going to happen with each of these cases. So no one paid him any attention. And then he, took his hat off and everything got started. His case was called. His attorney spoke up for him, and the judge never heard him say any of that stuff. And I'll give him credit that he didn't actually interrupt any of the actual court proceeding. But it goes to show you that you can feel very strongly about your beliefs, and you can feel very strongly about what happened in the election. It still doesn't give you the right to interrupt or disrupt the court proceedings, and it is not going to help you to get out of the situation. The only way out it is through it, and the best possible, I think, remedy to the whole situation is just to have an attorney, have them take over for you, and let them do the talking on your behalf. Tell them what your interests are, and then your attorney will be able to translate that the best way to the court that they know how. So those are my thoughts on the situation. I think that it shows a lack of maturity. I think that it shows magical thinking, hoping that advancing sovereign citizen arguments is going to somehow avoid you facing consequences for storming the Capitol. Clearly, that's not what's going to happen. Clearly, this woman is going to see the inside of a jail cell if she does not start taking this very seriously. The judge is going to run out of patience with her. Her case was continued so that she could, reassess whether or not she wanted a lawyer. And I'm assuming that the judge, wants to give her a chance to get a lawyer. Now, Miss Pauline Bauer is not the only one who's advancing these self-represented or sovereign citizen arguments. There's also a gentleman by the name of Zach Allen, so he's a bit of a bonus, I guess. This just happened today. He also disrupted the court proceedings, said that he was going to represent himself. He is a native of Texas, and he came in from Texas, and he is accused of breaking the window at the speaker's lobby. So he actually has more of a direct other than just being in the Capitol building, he has more of a direct accusation of him actually damaging property. He yelled that he chooses to speak for himself. He yelled over his appointed attorney and said he did not want the appointed attorney. And then he demanded that the prosecutor provide him with a plea deal. All of this reporting is courtesy of Scott McFarland on Twitter. Thank you very much, Mr. McFarland, for providing that background because there's no video. But according to Mr. McFarland, Mr. Allen was asserting that the courts basically have to force the prosecution to give him a plea deal. The courts do not have to do that, and the prosecution is not obligated to give a defendant a plea deal. So it's rare where a person is not given a plea deal, but I currently have a very serious case right now where there is no plea deal on the table. That will happen where the prosecution believes that they have a serious enough case and a strong enough case that there's no benefit to the state in seeking a plea deal. Now, in this particular circumstance, the prosecution did say that they would eventually offer him a plea deal and they were open to plea negotiations. But then in return, Mr. Allen shouted out that, well, my offer is that you completely dismiss the case and dismiss all the charges against me. What's your counteroffer? So he was just like yelling out nonsense. Like, they're not going to just dismiss the case against you. On what basis would they do that? But anyway, we have two Capitol rioters here who are not taking the proceedings seriously. And I think that ultimately it's going to lead to their downfall. Neither of their legal arguments are sound or supported by law. We all know that sovereign citizen arguments don't work. Whether or not your ancestors were here from the beginning of time has no bearing on whether or not the United States has jurisdiction over you. If the crime happened in the United States under the inland that is controlled by the federal government, then that's it. You're gonna be under the jurisdiction of that court. So those are my thoughts on the situation. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.